जयो राधा माधवा जयो कुंज विहारी जयो राधा माधवा जयो कुंज विहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा जयो गिरिवरधारी जयो गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा जयो गिरिवरधारी जयो गिरिवरधारी यशोदनंदन व्रज जनरंजन नंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदनंदन व्रज जनरंजन उदनंदन व्रज जनरंजन यमुना तीरावनचारी तीरावनचारी यमुना तीरावनचारी आवनचारी जयो राधा माधवा जयो कुंज विहारी जयो राधा माधवा जयो कुंज विहारी जयो कुंज विहारी जयो कुंज विहारी जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रा जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रा जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी भावतु मे जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी भावतु मे जय राधा Giri Govardhan Jaya 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 Giri Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Govardhan Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Srila Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Srila Guru Deva Grandhara Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirayet Srinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Savana Kirtanaha Hrudantasto hi abhadrani Suhusatam Dunnoti Suhusatam Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, established as an irrevocable fact. So we were reading Canto 8, Withdrawal of the Cosmic Creations, Chapter 18, Lord Vamana Dev, the Dwarf Incarnation, Text 21. Tam narmadayastata uttarar baler, tam narmadayastata uttare baler, tam narmadayastata uttare baler. Narmadayastata uttare baler yanrutvijaste bhrugukaccha samagnake pravatayanto bhrugava kartutaptamam bhrugavo kratuttamam pravrutayanto bhrugava kratuttamam Pravrutayanto Bhrugava Kratuttamam Vechakshatarad Uditam Yataravim Tam narmadayastata uttare baler yarutvijaste bhrugukaccha samagnake Brugukaccha samagnake pravatayanto brugava kratuttamam Vyachakshatarad uditam yataravim Tam narmadayastata uttare baler Yarutvijaste brugukaccha samagnake Pravatayanto bhruguva kratuttamam Yavachakshatarad uditam yatharavim Tam narmadayastatavuttare bale Yarutvijaste brugukaccha samagnake Pravartayanto brugava kratuttamam Vyachakshatarad uditam yataravim. Word to word meaning and translation by His Divine Grace, Bhakti Srila Prabhupada ki, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Tam, him, Vamanadeva, Narmadayaha, of the river Narmada, Tate, on the bank, Uttare, northern, Baleha, of Bali Maharaj, Ye, U, Ritvija, the priests engage in ritualistic ceremonies, Te, all of them, Brugukaccha Samagnake, in the field of name Brugukaccha, Pravartayanta, performing, Brugavaha, all the descendants of Bhrigu, Kratuttamam, the most important sacrifice, named Ashwamedha, Vachakshata, they observed, Arad, nearby, Uditam, risen, Yatha, like, Ravim, the sun. Translation. While engaged in performing the sacrifice in the field known as Brugukaccha, on the northern bank of the Narmada river, the Brahminical priests, the descendants of Bhrigu, saw Vamanadeva to be like the sun rising nearby. Now, Brugukaccha, anyone knows where Brugukaccha is? Brugukaccha, according to, when I search for the website, it says that it is Bharuch, the modern city in Gujarat. Has anyone been to Bharuch? It's on the western side of India. It's a seaport abutting Arabian Sea, and it's historically known for the place where Bhrigu, one of the Saptarishis, who performed tapasya there, and he had his ashram. So therefore, it receives its name called Brugukaccha. And as you know that Saptarishis, they play a predominant role in the Vedic culture in maintaining the Vedic standards, and from whom we have the lineages. So therefore, it said the descendants of Bhrigu. So therefore, Bhrigu is one of the Saptarishis, and there we find the descendants, sometimes they're called Bhargavas. So we have typical, in a Vedic way of introducing, we call that as Pravara. I'm not sure how many of you know how to say a pravara. Anyone has an idea? How do we say a pravara? That is, how do we introduce ourselves in a Vedic way to others? And when we introduce ourselves in a Vedic way, we try to introduce with the lineage. Like my parents' given name is Chandrasekhar. So therefore, I don't simply say Chandrasekhar, but in a Vedic culture, we call it pravara, where I place my two hands around the ears and then say, Chatursagara Paryantam Go Brahmanebhyaha Shubham Bhavatu Bhargava Chavana Aurava Aplavana Jagadagni Pancharushi Pravanvita Srivatsa Gotra Apastamba Sutraha Ejurshaka Adhyayi Chandrasekhara Sharma Ahambho Abhivadhaye. This is how in the Vedic culture we try to introduce ourselves. And in that introduction, you are mentioning the lineage. And the lineage goes back to the Saptarishis. And this is the way how persons are identified. And in that identification comes the responsibility of the person who belongs to that lineage to carry the values of that lineage or the values of that parampara. So it humbles that individual in that lineage and also gives him the responsibility to carry out the mission of that lineage. And therefore in that we find that Gotra is one of the aspects of the lineage, and typically that is used in marriages and functions where the Swagotra persons do not get married. Same Gotra persons are not allowed to marry because it is considered to be inbreeding, or it may lead to health issues for the progeny, which is typically accepted even in the modern science. And how do we introduce ourselves in Krishna consciousness? Because this is the typical way of how we introduce ourselves in Vedic culture, that is pravara. But what is the pravara we recite in Krishna consciousness when we come to Krishna consciousness? How do we introduce ourselves? We say that Naham Vipro, Nacha Narapatir, Na Api Vaishyo, Na Sudro, Naham Varni Nacha Gruhapatir, Na Vanasto Vatirva, Yatirva, Kintu Prodhya Nikhila Paramananda Purnamruta Abder, Gopi Bhartapada Kamalayor, Dasa Dasa Anudasa. This is our identification in Krishna consciousness, that I am not a Brahmana, I am not a Kshatriya, I am not a Vaishya or a Sudra, nor am I a Brahmachari, a householder, a Vanaprastha or a sannyasi. I identify myself only as a servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis. So therefore you find this is the way how we introduce ourselves in Krishna consciousness. Or this is how we should introduce ourselves in Krishna consciousness, and that mood should be carried out in our words, in our deeds, and in our actions. Just as in the typical Vedic culture, the pravara is recited, here we recite, we tend to say that we are the servants of the servants of the servants of the devotees. Dasa dasanu dasa pada kamalayor dasa dasanu dasa. This is our identity. And with that identity comes once again the humility, and with that identity comes the responsibility. And in this responsibility, we belong to the lineage of Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. And in this lineage, as brought to us by Srila Prabhupada, it is the mood of compassion, the mood of giving, the mood of sharing Krishna consciousness. So typically we tend to say, our Sampradaya represents, what is the main representation of our Sampradaya? It is the Siksha Sampradaya. Generally it is a Diksha, but our Sampradaya is known for Siksha, or preaching Krishna consciousness. And in Bhrigu descendants, who are the main persons, some of the main persons, does anyone remember? Because it talks about the Brahmanical priests, the descendants of Bhrigu. Who are some of the descendants of Bhrigu? Śukracharya himself. Śukracharya is a son of Bhrigu, and Bhrigu is a son of Lord Brahma. So that is the descendants. And some of the other descendants are Chavan. Chavan is known for rejuvenation. That is, anyone becomes old, he has the ability to make them young. And therefore, in today's world, the Ayurvedic medicine, not medicine, but the formula Chavan Prash, it derives its name that when you take Chavan Prash, you remain young and energetic. And some of the other descendants are Jamadagni, who is the father of Lord Parshuram. So Lord Parshuram, Lord Chavan, then Jamagni, Shukracharya, these are all the descendants of Bhrigu. And here we find the descendants of Bhrigu, the Brahmanical priest, the descendants of Bhrigu saw Vamanadev to be like the sun rising nearby. So here we find Shukracharya and others who are present who have seen Lord Vamanadev entering the arena of sacrifice. And in the pastime, there is an interesting pastime of Bhrigu. Does anyone know the pastime of Bhrigu? Sorry? Yeah, thank you. We find that Bhrigu was given the responsibility of finding who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then he walks into, or he goes to Brahmaloka, and typically in a Vedic culture, when you see an elderly person, a man is supposed to perform Sastanga Namaskar, or all the 8 parts of the body should touch the floor and offer dandavas. This is a culture. And this culture I have seen in Hyderabad ISKCON temple. We don't find so much in our temple, but there early morning when you're attending Mangalarti, every devotee who comes to the temple offers Sastanga Dandavas to the senior Vaishnavas of the temple. That's a typical culture there. So here also, Bhrigu, when he goes to Brahmaloka, is supposed to offer Sastanga Namaskar to Brahmadev, but he does not do that. And Brahma becomes angry and wants to curse him, so Bhrigu disappears from that place. And then goes to Kailash, where Lord Shiva is present. And to Shiva, he starts using, you stay in crematorium and other places, and then starts criticizing Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva equally becomes angry, and then he takes up his trishul to remove his head. And then he runs away from Kailash and then goes to Vaikunta, where he meets Lord Vishnu, and then we know that Bhrigu kicks Lord Vishnu on his chest, and then Lord Vishnu says, my dear sir, that my chest has become hard by fighting the demons, and your lotus feet must have been hurt. So that's how Bhrigu confirms that it's Lord Vishnu who is the Supreme Lord. And if you have been to Balaji temple, at the doorstep you have this inscription of the pastime of Bhrigu, performing these 3 aspects of this pastime, going to Brahmaloka, going to Kailash, and then entering Vaikunta, and then finally declaring Lord Vishnu as the Supreme Lord. 22. We'll read only the translation. O king, because of Vamanadev's bright effulgence, the priests along with Bali Maharaj and all the members of the assembly were robbed of their splendor. Thus they began to ask one another whether the sun god himself, Sanat Kumara, or the fire god had personally come to see the sacrificial ceremony. Now here is a lesson for us to learn, that the Lord himself has walked into the arena. But yet we find the exalted priests who were performing the sacrifice, the Ashwamedha Yajna, they could not recognize the Supreme Lord. Why do you think that the priests who were exalted, Shukracharya himself is not an ordinary person, but yet they failed to understand at this moment who the Lord was? What is the reason, Srila Prabhupada? Because Prabhupada does not mention anything here in purport, but generally what's the reason given by Prabhupada? Any reason? When the Lord is walking into the arena, the priest, here it says that they fail to recognize him as a supreme Lord. They are only thinking whether is it the sun god himself or Sanat Kumara or a fire god personally came to see the sacrificial ceremony. Prabhupada says elsewhere that it is the lack of love. Unless one eye is anointed with prema, one will not be able to recognize the Lord. Therefore, what is the words Prabhupada quotes often? From Brahma Samhita, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santasa Daiva Hrudayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaramachinta Ganaswarupam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. It's like, it said that if a magnet is coming, doesn't matter in any form, the iron filings can be attracted. Which means that it's the form of the Lord should not cover the Lord's personality. It's what is required is our intense love for the Lord reveals himself. So unless we have that anointed with the prema or the eyes, then we will not be able to recognize the Supreme Lord. And what is the process given to us to come to that platform? Sorry? Yeah, Harinam. This is the Sankirtana movement where we need to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Shravanam Kirtanam. If we follow this process sincerely, then one day, with the mercy of the Parampara, we'll be able to achieve that platform of developing intense love for the Lord. And when we develop that intense love for the Lord, no matter in which form the Lord comes, the persons will be able to recognize. And here we do find the glimpses given to us of Bali Maharaj does recognize Lord Vishnu. When we move to the next verse, in verse 26, the indication is given. 23. While the priests of the Bhrigu dynasty and their disciples talked and argued in various ways, the Supreme Personality of Vamandev, holding in his hand the rod, the umbrella, and a water pot full of water, entered the arena of Ashwamedha sacrifice. So this is the typical attire of a brahmachari. I think those of you who have undergone the thread ceremony, on the day when you get the sacred thread, you would have seen that you are given a danda, an umbrella, and a kamandalam with water, and you seek alms, you beg alms from the senior Brahmanas or Vaishnavas who are in that area. Has anyone gone through that process? Did you have did you receive the Gayatri in Vedic culture? Okay. We call it Upanayanam. In that, when the Upanayanam is performed, you are given this attire. And even before a person enters the Grihastha life, a day before or the day morning, you are given this umbrella, the shoes, the danda, to indicate that the married life is not a Gruhamedi life, but it's an ashram, it's a grihastha, it's a responsibility to enable you oneself and to enable the family to return back home, back to Godhead. But hardly anyone remembers that they were given that danda and the umbrella and the kamandal at the time of marriage. Anyone married here went through that process? I can't ask Sevya Bhagwan Prabhu. You have seen? Yeah. It is that. So therefore, this is the attire of a typical brahmachari. And each one is a symbolic represent. Each one has got a purpose and why that attire is given. 24. Appearing as a Brahmana boy, wearing a belt of straw, a sacred thread, an upper garment of deer skin, and matted locks of hair, Lord Vamanadev entered the arena of sacrifice. His brilliant effulgence diminished the brilliance of all the priests and their disciples, who thus stood from their seats and welcomed the Lord properly by offering obeisances. So this is the purity of an individual. Of course, here it is the Supreme Lord walking into the arena, effulgence. But we find that in the Leelamrita, it is said that when Srila Prabhupada was walking through in one of the airports in America, one of the police officers looks at Srila Prabhupada and says, "See that the person, there's light coming, light coming." So the purity is reflected externally in the form of an aura, and that aura attracts the persons. So here the Supreme Lord is Satchitananda Vigraha, and therefore that effulgence, it immediately attracts anyone. And if you've been to typical South Indian temples, especially coming from Tamil Nadu, where like Srirangam and other places, you can see some of the brahmacharis there tying their hair, matted hair, and the moment you look at them, you can see the effulgence coming from them. And similarly, we find in our temple, when you look at the brahmacharis wearing the orange robes, and you see them at some times, you can see that effulgence surrounding their, it's like an aura, therefore they are able to attract because of the purity through the process of Krishna consciousness. And here in 26, we can see when we said that others could not recognize, but Bali Maharaj could understand is the Supreme Lord. Bali Maharaj, jubilant at seeing Lord Vamanadev, whose beautiful limbs contributed equally to the beauty of his entire body, offered him a seat with great satisfaction. So a glimpse is given here to indicate that Bali Maharaj recognized the Supreme Lord. And when you see the Supreme Lord, you become jubilant. Just as when you see a pure soul, you become very happy, you become immediately connected. And that's the reason why we come to temple to have darshan of Gaur Nitai, Radha Vallabha, Jagannath Baldev Subhadramaya, Srila Prabhupada, because you feel blissful since you are seeing the Supreme Lord himself. And here, Bali Maharaj, who became jubilant at seeing Lord Vamanadev. And that, as we said earlier, the example of the magnet, doesn't matter in which form the magnet is, the iron filings get attracted to the magnet. So similarly here we find Bali Maharaj could recognize Lord Vamanadev, that he is not an ordinary person, but he is the Supreme Lord, and therefore he became so happy, so jubilant. 27, thus offering a proper reception to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always beautiful to the liberated souls, Bali Maharaj worshipped him by washing his lotus feet. 28, Lord Shiva, the best of demigods, who carries on his forehead the emblem of the moon, receives on his head with great devotion the Ganges water emanating from the toe of Vishnu. Being aware of religious principles, Bali Maharaj knew this. Consequently, following in the footsteps of Lord Shiva, he also placed on his head the water that had washed the Lord's lotus feet. Lord Shiva, purport, Lord Shiva is known as Gangadhara, or one who carries the water of the Ganges on his head. On Lord Shiva's forehead is the emblem of the half moon, yet to give supreme respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shiva placed the water of the Ganges above this emblem. This example should be followed by everyone, or at least by every devotee, because Lord Shiva is one of the Mahajans. Similarly, Maharaj Bali also later became a Mahajana. One Mahajana follows another Mahajana, and by following the parampara system of Mahajana activities, one can become advanced in spiritual consciousness. The water of the Ganges is sanctified because it emanates from the toe of Lord Vishnu. Bali Maharaj washed the lotus feet of Vamanadeva, and the water with which he did so became equal to the Ganges. Bali Maharaj, who perfectly knew all religious principles, therefore took that water in his head, following in the footsteps of Lord Shiva. Om Jnanatimmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamscha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has the form of Sachitananda Vigraha. I offer my respectful obeisance unto him who turned the dumb into eloquent speakers and enabled the lame to cross mountains. Such is the mercy of the Lord. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So it's a Vedic culture that we worship Brahmanas, and we find that this has been extensively said at many places in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam and Vedic culture that we need to worship the Brahmanas. Why do you think that one should worship Brahmanas? Yeah, they are the personification of purity, austerity, simplicity, and in one sense we can say that they form a bridge between an ordinary person and the Supreme Lord, because it is through them that we get connected to the Supreme Lord. Imagine for a moment that there is no Brahmana, in the sense there is no Vaishnava. Then there's no Vedic culture which can be given to us. And that's one of the reasons why when Aurangzeb, the Mughal emperor, when he was ruling the country, he said that the way to destroy or to convert people into Islam is to kill Brahmanas. So it was said that every day he was expecting his commanders to get the threads, the sacred thread of the Brahmanas, to indicate that they have been converted into Islam. So either they should be beheaded or they should be brought, the thread should be brought to them. And in one of the websites it says that almost every day up to 30 to 35 kg of threads, sacred threads, were brought to Aurangzeb to indicate that on such a massive scale people were being converted into Islam. So that destroys the Vedic culture. Just as Britishers, they try to destroy the Vedic culture by destroying the books, the knowledge. So therefore, they play such a prominent role in connecting us to the Supreme Lord, and therefore we need to worship them. And Lord Himself says, many verses, I was trying to go through Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, and then I'll just pick up only one or two. In 10.86.57, you should worship these Brahmana sages, O Brahmana, the same faith you have in me. If you do so, you will worship me directly, which you cannot do otherwise, even with offerings of vast riches. So this is the Lord Himself is saying. Then in 5.3.17, the Lord's replied, O great sages, I am certainly very pleased with your prayers. You are all truthful. You have prayed for the benediction of a son like me for King Nabhi, but this is difficult. Since I am the supreme person without a second, and since no one is equal to me, another personality like me is not possible to find. In any case, because you are all qualified Brahmanas, your vibration should not prove untrue. I consider the Brahmanas who are well qualified with Brahmanical qualities to be as good as my own mouth. So that is an exalted position of a Brahmana given by the Lord Himself. And in 5.5.23, again it said, O respectable Brahmanas, as far as I am concerned, no one is equal or superior to the Brahmanas in this world. I do not find anyone comparable to them. When people know my motive after performing rituals according to Vedic principles, they offer food to me with faith and love through the mouth of a Brahmana. When food is thus offered unto me, I eat it with full satisfaction. Indeed, I derive more pleasure from food offered in that way than from the food offered in the sacrificial fire. So this is the exalted position of a Brahmana. And I think in some temples, if I'm not mistaken, Udupi temple, the Lord is fed to the Brahmana. So the Brahmanas are given the bhoga, and that's how Lord takes it. So here we find Prabhupada in the purport is saying that Lord Shiva is known as Gangadhara, or one who carries the water on his head. At the top, so you can, if you see if you have a darshan of Lord Shiva in any of the temples, you find that Lord Shiva has got the moon, and then on the top of the moon, you find Mother Ganga Devi is sitting. And that indicates the exalted position to Mother Ganga Lord Shiva is given. And why? Because that Ganga emanates from the toe or the lotus toe of Lord Vamanadev when he pierces through the universe. And that water which comes from the Karna Jal, it becomes Ganga, and that Ganga water is adorned by Lord Shiva. So therefore, the example should be followed by everyone, or at least by every devotee, because Lord Shiva is one of the Mahajans. Now we should remember that Vedic literature has nearly 1 million verses. Vedic literature has got about 1 million verses. Hardly anyone has the time to read through those 1 million verses. And even if one reads through those 1 million verses, one will not be able to come to a proper conclusion, because we find apparent contradictions everywhere. And even personalities like Śrīpad Ramanujacharya, for example, he had a debate with a person who was a Mayavadi. For almost 27 days, they were arguing that about the Supreme Lord. And ultimately a day came, the last day, 27th day, a day before last of their argument. On 27th day, the Mayavadi is almost winning the debate. The Mayavadi was almost winning the debate, and Śrīpad Ramanujacharya goes back home despondent. He's saying that I'm not able to prove that the Lord is supreme to this Mayavadi. And he cries to Lord Vardarajan that if I lose this battle, then it's not a loss to me, but it's a loss to you, because I'm not able to prove through the Vedic scripture that you are the Supreme Lord and you have a personality. And then Lord appears to him in the dream, and he says that please read through the commentary of Yamunacharya. And after reading the commentary of Yamunacharya, the next day he enters the arena for the argument, because that the debate was that whosoever wins the debate, then the other person has to surrender with his disciples to the person. So the previous day, the Mayavadi was at the top of the world, that he walked away with a lot of pride, and the next day he saw Śrīpad Ramanujacharya entering the arena of debate with valor, with effulgence, and even without entering into the debate, the Mayavadi surrenders to the lotus feet of Śrīpad Ramanujacharya. And he said that I accept your logic, I accept your argument. Now what does that mean? That here we have a scholar Mayavadi, and here we have Śrīpad Ramanujacharya, equally a towering personality of Sri Sampradaya, but yet it took almost 28 days to debate with the person to come to the conclusion that the Lord is a personality. So that is the level of intricacy you have in Vedic culture or Vedic literature. So therefore, what is the solution we have? How do we come to the right conclusion? So Prabhupada says that here, the example should be followed by everyone, at least by every devotee, because Lord Shiva is one of the Mahajans. Similarly, Maharaj Bali also later became a Mahajan. One Mahajan follows another Mahajana, and by following the Parampara system of Mahajan activities, one can become advanced in spiritual consciousness. So the way one advances in spiritual consciousness is to follow a Mahajan. And this we find in verses in Bhagavad Gita. Yad yad acharatri sreshtas tad evataro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokas tada anuvartate. Whatever action is performed by a great man, common man follows in his footsteps. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So this is what Krishna is saying to Arjuna. And then we have other quotes like Acharyavan Purusho Veda. One who follows the disciplic succession of Acharyas knows things as they are. So by following the disciplic succession of the Acharyas, then we come to know the right conclusion. That is Chandogya Upanishad 6.14.2. Then we have Tad Vignartham Sa Gurum Evavi Gacchati. In order to understand the transcendental science, one must approach the bona fide spiritual master. And similarly, we have many other verses in Bhagavatam that talks about this. So as a householder, it's our duty to perform or to work for the benefit of everyone, because among the 4 ashramas, we find the role of a grihastha is to support the other 3 ashramas. And particularly in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we find the Lord says, Bharata bhumite haila manushya janma yara janma sataka kari kara para upakara nacho gavo bhakta sange kara sankirtana Krishna nam upadeshi Tara Sarvajana. One who has taken his birth as a human being in the land of India should make his life successful and work for the benefit of all other people. My dear child, continue dancing, chanting and performing Sankirtana in association with devotees. Furthermore, go out and preach the value of chanting Krishna Nama, for by this process you will be able to deliver all the fallen souls. And Narottam Das Thakur in his Prema Bhakti Chandrika also says, Mahajanera yepata ta teha ba anurata purva para kariye vichara. I will be attached to the path chalked out by the previous and later Mahajans. So this is our hope, and this is the process we need to follow. That follow the parampara, follow the Mahajans, follow the Acharyas to come to the right conclusion, and then perfect one's own life and facilitate that perfection to the others. So what is Sampradaya we are trying to follow? We are following the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, and Srila Prabhupada brought to us this glorious Sampradaya. To us, we are thousands of miles away from where it has originated, and His mercy that we are sitting here and trying to discuss Krishna Katha. And what is the mood of Srila Prabhupada in trying to follow the Sampradaya? Compassion. And that compassion, Prabhupada summarized in 3 to 4 words, that the purity is the force, books are the basis, preaching is the essence, and utility is the principle. So summarizing this, we find that Prabhupada has given us the mood of our Sampradaya, that we need to go on, we need to share the books, because books are the basis. When books are the basis, books must be distributed. And therefore, Prabhupada has instituted the concept of marathon, and we find worldwide all the devotees around this time go on marathon. And I'm sure this time Melbourne Mahaprabhu Mandir is also represented by a battalion of more than 200 devotees, or am I right, Prabhu? More than 200 devotees are participating in this marathon and are distributing hundreds and thousands of books, because books is the basis by which one can reach out to the persons. So, one can become advanced. So the water of the Ganges is sanctified because it emanates from the toe of Lord Vishnu. Bali Maharaj washed the lotus feet of Vamana Dev, and the water with which he did so became equal to the Ganges. Bali Maharaj, who perfectly knew all religious principles, therefore took that water on his head, following in the footsteps of Lord Shiva. So this is our process of following Bali Maharaj, or following the Mahajans, following the disciplic succession of which was brought to us by Srila Prabhupada. Participate in Sankirtana Yajna, chant, dance, distribute books, share Krishna Katha, and then purify oneself and facilitate that purification to others. And if we do not do that, then we are failing in our mission. We are failing in our duty in following this Sampradaya. Yeah, with this we'll stop, And we'll continue the next two verses just to complete this chapter. But Bali Maharaj then said to Lord Vamanadev, O Brahmana, I offer you my hearty welcome and my respectful obeisances. Please let us know what we may do for you. We think you as a personified austerity of the great Brahmana sages. O Lord, because you have kindly arrived at our home, all my forefathers are satisfied. Our family and entire dynasty have been sanctified, and the sacrifice we are performing is now complete because of your presence. O son of a Brahmana, today the fire of sacrifice is ablaze according to the injunction of the Shastra, and I have been freed from all the sinful reactions of my life by the water that has washed your lotus feet. O my Lord, by the touch of your small lotus feet, the entire surface of the world has been sanctified. So this is a typical Vedic culture where you wash the lotus feet of the spiritual master, lotus feet of Brahmanas, and sprinkle that water on your head to purify oneself. And it is said, we call it, I think, Purna Kumbha, where typically a Brahmana is received by, in a kalasham or in a vessel, you have water, and then you have the coconut, and you place the camphor on the coconut, and you give arati to the spiritual master, and then break that coconut, throw away the coconut, use that water to wash the lotus feet of the spiritual master and or the Brahmana, and sprinkle that water on your head. This is the typical process which facilitates the person to get purified or to move on a Krishna consciousness journey, or to advance in Krishna consciousness journey. 32. O son of a Brahmana, it appears that you have come here to ask me for something. Therefore, whatever you want, you may take from me. O best of those who are worshipable, you may take from me a cow, gold, a furnished house, palatable food and drink, the daughter of a Brahmana for your wife, prosperous villages, horses, elephants, chariots, or whatever you desire. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 8th canto, 18th chapter of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, entitled Lord Vamanadev, the Dwarf Incarnation. So we find that a sacrifice or a function is not complete without two things being done. One is called the Annadanam, or the Prasadam distribution, and two is the Dakshina. You have to give Dakshina to the persons who are performing, or who Brahmanas who come there. So this is a typical, once again, a Vedic culture which gives the person the inner purification, and then because of that purification, the person takes step closer to Krishna, and as the person takes step closer to Krishna, becomes detached from the material world. So this is the process, that it's not that artificially we try to detach ourselves from the material world, but actually you move towards Krishna, then automatically you become detached from matter. And with that detachment, the cycle of birth, death, old age, disease, you can exit and return back home, back to Godhead. Yeah, Gandharaj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any question or a comment from anyone? Yes, Prabhu.
Different people, different times and circumstances. So Yes, so there are these discrepancies sometimes appearing in the Vedas, but it's because of different time and place and circumstance and mode and ashram. So I was sometimes thinking, often in class, people asking questions like, here it says one thing in the Vedas, here it says something else, which is a discrepancy, and rather than worrying about questions like that, it might be better if they sort of think about this story in the Bhagavatam is illustrating some particular point in the Vedas. So what is, maybe try and think about what is actually the purpose of this story, what is it illustrating, what is the point we should get here? You know, rather than thinking about there's a discrepancy, but rather think about what is this story in the Bhagavatam telling us here, what is we trying to find out what is the actual purpose. So what is your opinion about this idea of...
What is the message from this pastime? Yeah, the essence of the pastime is trying to tell us that everything belongs to Him, nothing belongs to you. And why are you holding back? And when the Lord Himself has come to you, where is the question of retaining it? Just give it off. Because Shukracharya's Gurudev, he obstructs it. He tries to stop from giving. And Bali Maharaj says, what glorious step could be when Supreme Lord Himself has come and you are holding it back. It belongs to the Lord and you are giving it back to the Lord. So therefore we have Prabhupada says, utility is the principle. So what is the utility of the wealth? The utility of the wealth is to use in service of the Supreme Lord. There are many aspects one can draw, but ultimately that if you recognize, if you develop that love for the Lord, you will be able to recognize the Lord. And when you recognize the Lord, you give everything to Him because it belongs to Him. And if in the process your Guru is misguiding you, you reject the Guru also. And one should have that capability, or one should have that ability to rise to the platform and understand what is the essence of the Vedic literature, what is the essence of Krishna consciousness, and are able to differentiate and then take that essence and return back home, back to Godhead. Not every person has the ability to reject their spiritual master. But here the principle is being shown that if something is coming in between yourself and the Supreme Lord, and that something could be as high as your own spiritual master, you should reject his instruction and follow what the Mahajan is saying. The Mahajan says that serve the Supreme Lord, follow the Mahajans. Does that answer your question? Any other question or a comment? Yeah.
You mentioned about the greatest opera basis systems, but you see the culture of ISKCON changes in it from time to time on place to place. But when I first joined, whenever someone would go away travelling their opera basis to each other, when first meeting someone with opera basis, even if sometimes the temporary after a few days you've been seeing someone, the word would again seem to opera basis and about it was very nice way to greet each other, opera basis. We used to do that just friends, you can see it for 3 days. See, oh, this is a and then each about out. So we used to do that quite frequently, that time. So don't do it in Australia so much.
Yeah.
In Australia, things would shake hands.
Yeah, typically shaking hand. But in Hyderabad temple, that's what I have seen whenever I visit the temple, especially if you're attending Mangalarati. Any senior Vaishnavas of the temple, the other Vaishnavas, they offer sastang, that is on the floor, all the 8 limbs of the body flat on the floor. And the senior Vaishnavas simply says, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, implying that whatever dandavas you are doing, it is being passed on to Srila Prabhupada. So on behalf of Srila Prabhupada, he is receiving the dandavas, and therefore the person who is offering dandavas receives the blessings of Srila Prabhupada and the Parampara. Right? Any other question or a comment? Okay. Grandhara Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vanchakaro Vanchakalpa Tarubhischa Krupa Sindhubhya Yevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Vandeham Sri Guru